Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I'm your host, Ashwin. I'm joined by Varun. Varun, how you doing? You haven't been on for, I guess, 1 week, and then we took a couple of weeks off. So DJ and I got to shake off kind of the post-break blues last week, but this is the first back for you. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, I was just looking at our podcast software and thinking, do I need to press anything additional? Because it's been 3 weeks, and yeah, I heard you guys last week. I think you guys covered so much stuff between the World Cup win and the new coach and the new captain, and so I was a bit sad because I would have loved to be there to discuss all these changes. But otherwise, doing well. I'm actually, interestingly enough, going to Sri Lanka tomorrow,
Oh,
and
there
I
you go.
will be in Colombo for the first ODI.
Are you going to go to
And
the game? I know you were thinking
I'm
about it.
so I'm going to use this podcast to see if there is anybody who knows how to hook me up with tickets,
There you
and you're
go.
listening today. Just reach out, man, because I actually surprisingly finish my meetings Friday afternoon, and the game starts Friday afternoon. Now that
There you
could
go.
be a coincidence, or it
That
could be not.
sounds like it's a
But
coincidence.
yeah, so if anyone listening knows how to hook me up, let me know. Ashwin, I may even tap on you because I found how to buy the tickets, but I'm not getting the OTP delivered. So now either I have to ask you or DJ or maybe the concierge at the hotel I'm in if they can help you with the OTP. But yeah, I let's see. If I get down to the game, I'll definitely take some videos and pictures.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with anybody who is listening at one tip one hand on all the socials, one tip one hand at gmail.com. Send us a message. Uh, you know, I
This is
think,
probably a test of whether this works or not, right?
yeah, I
We've been
know. I'm
doing
not,
this 6 years.
I
It's the
know.
first time any of us have asked for anything back
I
on the
think it's just
podcast.
that I can't imagine we have that many listeners in Sri Lanka. I know we tend to skew, obviously, India heavy and then North America and the UK, but mostly NRI population. So anyway, great way to start the show asking for free
I said I
stuff.
had to. I said I had to try.
There's been actually a lot of India Sri Lanka cricket, right? In the last 3 days, two days, there's been the final of the Asia Cup on the women's side, where India came up short, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then two T20 matches in the bilateral series, which I for some reason thought it was five T20s, but it's not. It's three. So the series is done. India has won the series, wrapped it up already. So we'll come to that. Varun, let's start very quickly with the women's Asia Cup. Tough loss, right? India has won the Asia Cup 7 times. DJ and I, when we talked last week, it was kind of the group stages showed you the rift in quality in the Asian women's teams, right? You saw two teams that were undefeated getting into the finals, India and Sri Lanka, which was great because the two deserving teams got there. But you started seeing Nepal and Thailand and stuff struggle at this level. But then getting into the finals, I will say I probably had more hubris than I have had on the men's side. I've always you always kind of feel our opponents in the women's game that we are fearful of are England and Australia to an extent. South Africa comes and goes, West Indies comes and goes, etc. But it's England and Australia are the dominant tides. Sri Lanka really showed up today, right? It was a phenomenal performance. I mean, to see Sri Lanka beat the Indian women by 8 wickets after the Indian team scored 165. I mean, outstanding, right? Any thoughts? It's disappointing. It's hard to address or speak about. But any thoughts?
No, even I was, I was reading up about this game before it kind of started, and the build up was exactly like you said. Everything was about how I think we won by huge margins in the last 4 to 5 games, and it just fell up short, man. I mean, nobody knows this better than us. Like today, after having 6 years, having done the podcast for 6 years, we can say we have a trophy,
Yeah,
but we're recording exactly 29, 30 days. Exactly
yeah,
30 days ago, we'd been doing this without ever having won that trophy, right? So it's not, it's just, we know what falling short means. We know that it would have devastated the team. Honestly, getting 165 in 20 overs is not bad with the quality of the bowling we have. It's just, you got to give it to Sri Lanka, man. They won with an over and a half to spare.
yeah. I mean, tremendous and worth noting. Highest successful Sri Lankan chase, third highest successful chase against Indian women, highest ever successful chase in an Asia Cup. I mean, this was a big day. So phenomenal performance. Huge credit to Chamari Atapattu, who was the player of the series. Huge credit to Harshita Madhavi, who showed up today. Just absolutely phenomenal. phenomenal performance. I think she made 69 or 51 by the end of it. So good day. It's hard to talk about, hard to get into, but also a lot of positives for the Indian women's side, right? I mean, Smriti made a nice 60. Richa Ghosh had an excellent series, a couple of good matches. So good to good to see progress. Disappointing to not have that trophy on the board, but I think the better team won on the day. I mentioned there was a lot happening in Sri Lanka. Two T20s back to back. Varun, did you get a chance to kind of watch? We talked a little bit about selection, so I don't want to relive it entirely, but talk to me about Sky as captain for you. And then obviously there was some change, or there's one change in between the first and second T20, and that was Shubman Gill, who actually had a pretty good start with the bat in the first T20. Pulled up with a neck spasm, which I don't know if that's the new back strain, side strain, whatever we call it when you
Groin
don't
injury.
don't want to tell somebody they're dropped. But Chuman Gill left out for Sanju Samson, who unfortunately made a first baller, or got out to a first baller. Yeah, thoughts on Sky as captain and overall kind of Indian team approach to the series?
Yeah, so I know, like I said, I know you guys have covered it previously. Firstly, I've seen so many memes of our coach, our new coach, Gautam Gambhir, walking up to Bumrah and saying, "Ab tu batting open karega" and stuff. And it's been hilarious because I also thought about it. I don't think he's done anything ridiculous except ask Narayan to open, which
Which has
is
worked
10 years old news. So
and
apart from
worked this
that,
year, didn't it?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So apart from that, I can't think of any ridiculous decision that he's taken. Maybe bowling to Dhoni in a IPL final with seven people around the bat. Okay, that's just showing that's
Yeah,
showing his history with the bat. But I just love the memes. It's like Hardik Pandya, now you'll bowl leg spin, and there are actually images of him bowling leg spin in the nets. Uh, and
it's
I don't
too
know, it's
much.
all sorts of stuff, right? But generally great move, I think, for Indian cricket. And Sky being captain, you guys discussed. It's just the most logical move. There's nothing else about it. I almost feel like it would have been a very easy decision when you put, I'm assuming they have a whiteboard and they put up their name. So I think it was the right decision.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, and in terms of like leading from the front, results, etc., absolutely justified, right? As you think about his two performances in the two games, absolutely tremendous. I mean, he had a phenomenal first outing, but we'll get into it as I start kind of running down the team sheet, right? So I think when DJ and I talked this, we had the squad, but we didn't have the 11. Not a huge surprise that Yashasvi and Shubman opened. Sky played at three himself, Pant four. So in the first ODI or first T20, excuse me, um, Samson missed out, but Pant played four, Hardik five, Varun Riyan Parag six, Rinku Singh seven. Now again, hindsight, we got to see Riyan Parag, the all rounder, not just the batter. But were you happy with, surprised by the Riyan Parag pick?
Let me just okay. I was going to talk about two things here. Let me talk about Riyad Parag first, since you
Okay,
mentioned it. I am happy that he's playing. Okay,
yeah,
I think this IPL he showed a lot of maturity and he goes at a higher strike rate. He is not afraid to take a risk, and so I like the Ryan Parag selection. Who is he up against? It's Shivam Dubey. What does Shivam Dubey have? He has two X factors, which is one, he bats like UV, which for me is enough of an X factor.
that's it. He looks like
Second, he looks like UV. Second is he bowls an average of probably two balls every series, right? If you
yeah,
take an average. Now, uh, given both these are not great X factors, if Riyan Parag can bowl, it becomes a shoe in, right?
yeah.
Because again, remember, nobody around him bowls. And so I know he did take three wickets, and we will come to that. But what I wanted to also call out is Gautam Gambhir's reactions when he took those wickets was kind of a done and dusted kind of thing, right? So don't be surprised if that Bumrah opening the batting meme is not completely off. It is Riyan Parag, and I have to say he's not doing that weird Kedar Jadhav side action anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
He's bowling like a off spinner who's putting some pace on the ball, which is a little bit deceptive. And long story short, if Jadeja's retired from this format, if Shivam Dubey is not bowling, I think this is a very logical decision. And I like the decision. Now, The guy below him, Rinku Singh, is a KKR boy. I think Rinku Singh is now going to be the permanent slot. So I don't think Rinku Singh has any competition moving forward. Controversial, I know, but given the dynamics of, you know, how a few guys weren't successful in the World Cup, that KKR coach is now India coach, I think this is sorted. Let me pause there before I talk about Pant because I wanted to talk about him also. But do you kind of agree? I feel like that's kind of the lower order.
Yeah, look, we've talked a lot about how when the Indian captain is a franchise captain, that influences it, right? Kohli with RCB is the years when Chahal kind of flourished. Dhoni and CSK were the years Jadeja flourished. So it happens. It's normal. Potentially to an extent with coach too, right? And so this will be interesting to see if Gambhir's influence, obviously Gambhir's KKR connection means Rinku cements his spot. Now, I would argue where that's a little bit harsh on Rinku because I think he's earned the spot and he deserves it. Now, he didn't make the final 15 in the T20 World Cup, etc. But I would argue Rinku deserves the spot. So no argument from me there. I think the Riyan Parag one, the piece on it before we move to Pant that's really interesting for me is actually he sort of leapfrogged Washington Sundar, right? Because Dubé is the medium fast bowling all round option. And then if you're playing in the subcontinent and you don't need that extra bowling option to be quick, you're okay with it being spin. It feels like for the longest time we've been grooming Washington Sundar. So unless he's now gone further down to say, listen, he bats at 8 and he's an Akshar Patel Jadeja type of backup, that feels a little tough on him.
It does,
Thoughts?
but the thing is, he was the next big thing in February 2021,
Yeah.
and the world has moved on. We're closer
Yeah.
to February 2025. We're closer to the next GABA test, right? And what has he done? He just hasn't done enough. I don't know if he's not evolved enough. I don't know if he's just keeps getting injured, but there is just something that's not working. And I think you said it correctly. I think, even though you may not agree with this, but I think he is a backup for Akshar Patel now.
Yeah.
And that's the position he's in. And I think Riyan Parag has stepped up so much in the last 12 to 24 months with his batting that I I just think it's a classic example of you just couldn't keep up with the time and this game is evolving too fast.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I mean, I do agree. I think it was the right selection, but you feel a little hard done, and I think we'll come back to it because he picked up 3 wickets, but then he went for 30 runs in the second game with no wickets, and he bowled a full spell of 4 overs. So it's interesting. But I'm going to pause you for 1 second because we're going to take a very quick break, and then when we come back, we will talk about Rishabh Pant. Don't go anywhere. This is the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. If you're just joining for some reason, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're on YouTube, at One Tip One Hand on all the social medias, and one tip one hand at gmail.com. If you either just want to reach out, give us feedback, send us a compliment, or get Varun a ticket to the ODI, next Friday's ODI in Colombo. So there you go. I plugged it again. Varun, Rishabh Pant, batted at number 4. I was going to call it a match losing knock, but we obviously ended up winning. But scratchy. So talk. Let's do it. Talk to me about it.
No, so here's the deal, right? He has not done that well at 4 in limited overs games. I think I read somewhere, and the problem with reading this stuff right on social media is that you have no idea what Gambhir is saying is true or fake. So I don't know, but what he said sounded real to me, which is that Rishabh Pant has been given a lot of opportunities in white ball cricket. Now, in the World Cup, you put him at 3. I think his keeping skills have improved. I think the right place for him is at 3 in a T20 game. And so, to me, given that he was not a certainty or he's not top of mind for Gambhir and that he has had success at 3, whatever little bit that is, it made no sense to me that he batted at 4. It
Can I ask
just
you a
made no
silly
sense.
question?
Yeah.
Shubman Gill got out on the last ball of the power play, and Jaiswal got out 1 ball later. 1 ball. Does it make that much of a difference if you're coming in at 3 or 4 if you came in a ball later?
No, that was in hindsight.
Yeah,
The
fine.
guy who
Fine.
walked in didn't know that Jaiswal was. So the point is, I think what you're saying is the power play was over.
Yeah.
And so,
And I
and
like
that's
to me,
that's
3 or
the
4
correct
doesn't matter
logic.
if it's a delivery apart. But you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but delivery part is in hindsight. Like you didn't know at that point. But my
No, I
point
know.
is, if he's a power play batsman, you should have played him at 3. Now,
Yeah.
what ended up happening is he ended up at 49 or 33, which is 148. But
Looks
I don't
fine
know
on
if you're
paper. If you didn't
watching.
watch the knock, it looks
But
fine. Yeah.
yeah, but I did watch the knock, and it was pretty bad. He was struggling. He hit a six and the four before he got out, and so that changed his numbers completely. Otherwise, it would have been a 39 of
31
31,
ish. Yeah. Yeah.
and to me, that is not good enough in this new era. So the thing for Pant and Pandya that I saw is that make sure you're sticking to kind of your natural game. Make sure you are hitting, because I feel like you'll probably get rewarded for getting 15 or 5 and getting out, as opposed to making 39 of 31. So
Hmm.
they have to watch their back a little bit. This is what happens, right? Whether it's the corporate world, whether it's the cricket, when the management changes, it's almost like starting from zero. And your
Yeah.
your learning curve is not that steep because you've got your past to kind of back you. But if Pant does not sort himself out, it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, and you have to believe Gambhir won't give him as long a rope as he's gotten so far. And I mean, just from an innings spacing standpoint, to your point, he was 20 of 23 balls.
Yeah,
At the start of the 16th or midway through the 16th over, he was 20 of 23 balls, and he had a couple boundaries. Then Hardik hit one, then he hit a four, then and then he got some runs at the end, and then a 4 and 6, like you said. But you cannot be 20 of 23 at
yeah,
15.3 overs at that
yeah,
point. And I mean, it was four down at that point. I mean, it's just not the way the modern, or it was three down at that point. Sorry. So even more like it's not the way the modern game is played. So
and remember, Pant is like the most likable guy in the team. I
yep,
mean, I think Rohit Sharma said in some forum that if I need to laugh or if I need to feel light or something, I will call Rishabh Pant. So there's a huge likability factor that is no longer going to be there.
yeah, couldn't agree more. All right, Varun, Jaiswal and Gill. We've talked a lot about them. Gill, does he belong in the shortest format, etc.? I mean, went off to an absolute flyer. Not a lot of six. I mean, he hit 1 6, but it was all beautiful boundaries. Like or in many cases, absolutely beautifully hit. And that's what Gill brings to the table, right? He's classy. He hits it well, but he hits it relatively safe. But I mean, to score at 212, 34 and 6 of 16, Jaiswal 40 of 21. I mean, 74 in the power play. You take that in a heartbeat. But just absolutely overshadowed by the skipper who walked in and went berserk from the first ball. It felt like. I mean, at one point I messaged you being like, "Dude, leave these poor Sri Lankans alone." I mean, it was too. It just felt like utter dominance, and to see that, especially with Pant on 20 of 23. I almost called him Trump because it's election season. With Pant on 20 of 23, it was just the absolute most contrasting innings. But thoughts on Sky?
Yeah, I mean, this he had to come out and do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He had to come out and stamp his authority. And I think that's why he came out at three. Some of his, typically he bends and hits those shots behind. There was one ball where he just stood up straight and smacked it behind the wicket,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's when you messaged me. So he had to do it. I'm really glad he did it. He's got a 2 year rope, as you and DJ said last year. He's our number one T20 batter. And I just hope that the captaincy pressure doesn't get to him. He just needs to go out and play this same way. Because remember, he has not had the best record in knockout games, pressure games. And so we need him to be able to deal with the pressure of being captain and maintain his batting. And that's been the biggest challenge for all super batting captains, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, long story short, I'm really glad he did that. I'm really glad he came out and stamped his authority. And yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to in this combination.
Riyan Parag gets out 10, 12 balls left in the innings, going for a big kind of whip across the line. Rinku Singh gets out, then Pant, and then Rinku gets out, going for this early heave. No harm. Like obviously you want them to finish well, but there's no harm in being out in the last 2 overs, going for a little big shot, is there?
Yeah, not at all, man.
Okay.
Again, like I said,
Yeah.
you do want to show to this new management that I'm putting the team ahead of anything else.
Yeah. So then in the chase, right, they got off to a flyer. At one point, it looked like this game is
Yeah.
done, like they were going to lose. Nisanka played a fantastic knock. Kusal Mendes made 45, Nisanka 79. At 14 overs, they looked relatively on pace to win. Akshar then comes in, gets a wicket. Bishnoi gets one. But then at the 16 over mark, to the point you were making earlier, Riyan Parag gets thrown the ball. Right? I don't have exactly in front of me how many they needed one. But first ball off Riyan Parag's over, but he doesn't get credit for it, obviously, is a run out. Fourth ball's a wicket, and then he also gets the ball in the 20th over and gets two. I mean, at that point, it's Tikshana and Madhushanka, they're tailenders. But yeah, I mean, pretty clinical all in, right? Like, any thoughts on the bowling and the choice to give Riyan Parag the ball at the 17th?
I again, it. If I look at it, they did have Siraj and Arshdeep with an over to go. So I think it must have been a calculated risk to say put
Yeah.
this guy in a slightly pressure situation. And again, this doesn't happen out of the blue, right? Not in a
And it was
game.
56 of 24. So you might
Yeah.
be sitting here saying we've clawed it back enough that
Yeah, but you know
this is the time.
what?
But
25 or 28 in that Riyan Parag over,
yeah.
and you've left the door open, right? So
And potentially finished his international career, poor guy,
yeah,
right? Like, yeah.
exactly. So I think it was a risky move. I think he stood up, and that's what I talked a little bit about. I think he bowled quicker through the air,
Yeah. Yeah.
and rather than flighted deliveries. So smart cricket all around. I'm really happy that we are putting somebody. And look, I don't think Jaiswal bowling is the solution because that's feeling very forced.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Riyan Parag has bowled in the past, so I think
Yep.
it's a overall. I was happy, man. I can't complain.
Yeah, so good win. And then second T20 back to back days. You don't see that very often. The one change being Gill left out for Samson. Very quickly, obviously, we're not going to speculate on whether Gill is actually injured or not. Hopefully he's not. But Samson gets to open. Sky still batted at 3. Interestingly, Hardik walked in at 4 now. By the time he did, it was rain curtailed. But Samson opening, right decision at this point. Otherwise, what's the benefit if you've made the choice to bat Pant middle order? Jaiswal and Gill are going to be your future openers. Like, what are we doing with Samson, poor guy?
I I don't know. I read this very funny thing that he has been the only guy to have been consistently dropped by every captain since 2008. Like he just
He's got
can't.
a lot of he's gotten a lot of pretty good holidays on the BCCI's account though, right? He's traveled a lot without playing, which to be
And
fair, he doesn't want to. But yeah,
no, I agree, but it's just that's what I'm saying. There is something. There's something odd about this because he's in the squad. He's not the first keeper choice. He is playing opening. There's expectation for him to bat at 6 in the next game potentially if needed. There's just no clarity, and I don't know what the team is doing with Sanju Samson, and I also don't know what Sanju Samson is doing. Right? If you've gotten this opportunity, why have you got out 0 of 1?
yeah,
Like it's just
yeah,
ridiculous to me that you should not give up the opportunity you get. I think it's as simple as that. And I think he's going to struggle. I think his only shot at success if Pant fails massively
yeah.
because there is no. I don't think Kishan is part of the mix anymore, and I think your Jiteshs of the world are a bit too far out. I don't see them coming up unless yeah. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly, Abhishek Sharma is a wicketkeeper too, right? Or has wicket kept. So that's the other guy who you think may be next in. And I might be wrong. I might be remembering that
I don't
wrong.
know. I think he bowls, but
He's bowled for sure, but I think he's kept as well. But anyway, maybe I'm remembering that wrong. Right. Second T20 then, right? So Gill misses out. Samson comes in. Sri Lanka bats first in the stage, 161 for 9. Again, a decent start. Kusal Pereira this time makes a half century. Ravi Bishnoi, right? Like he's become arguably the first choice right arm leg spinner ahead of Chahal, and a great spell, phenomenal spell, 3 for 26, ended up being a match winning performance, but restricted them to 161. And then, kind of early into India's chase, rain started coming down, and
yeah,
that's the worst kind of experience to cricket. I mean, 162 in 20 overs is something you'd back India to chase in the subcontinent, but then 878 in 8 overs is just not as much fun necessarily. Samson got out for a duck, but then Sky came in, scored, hit 4 boundaries and a six. Jaiswal hit 2 sixes, 3 4s. Hardik walked in at 4, which was interesting, but again,
yeah.
not that much left to do. I think we needed 13, 14 odd. Oh no, sorry, we needed 27 runs, and he made 22. And in 9 balls, and then Rishabh didn't need to do much. But it's hard to even talk about the chase, right? It's clinical, but it was an 8 over chase, not a
Yeah,
lot
it
to
was.
do.
Yeah, it was 8 overs, and again, you saw Sky and Jaiswal were the guys, right? And I think that's what you're going to see over the next 12 months. You're just going to see these two just double down and get those runs, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like what Rohit and Kohli did. But yeah, did you feel that you missed Rohit and Kohli?
Man, I think I've been mentally ready for them to be gone in T20s. I was not actually mentally ready for the Jadeja retirement. It's the right decision, but I wasn't ready for it. But Rohit and Kohli, I think I've been mentally ready for more Kohli than Rohit, to be totally honest. But
Fair.
So I missed them a little. You feel it, but Sky actually said that, right? He's like, it's the same train, just that's running on the tracks. It's just a slightly different bogies that we're now carrying. And I was like, that's a good lie. He's like, yeah, those two
Yeah,
guys aren't there, but it's the same train that they built that's leading the way, which I think is a really good
yeah.
insight. So, did you miss them?
I didn't know, but I have a different reason why because they never play these games anyway.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
it
You weren't
just feels
expecting.
like they're going to come back, and they are going to come back this week on Friday,
They'll be
right?
back
So
on Friday. So yeah, one more T20 Tuesday. Varun, last thought. Do you think we change things up in the final T20 now that we've clinched the series? Do you give the Dubes and Sundars a look, or at this point, finish it strong, give this team more practice?
yeah, I would say give this team more practice.
Yeah.
If there's thought behind going, this is your first 11. I just if Gill's neck spasm is okay, then I think he comes in. That's all.
I asked DJ this, or DJ and I didn't do this live, but I sort of gave mine. 3 ODI series. Rohit Sharma's back. Predictions very quickly. All three in Colombo actually, and Friday, Sunday, and Wednesday. What are your predictions? We're gonna
I mean,
sweep it.
like I have to represent DJ because he's not here, right? So
All
I'm going
right.
to say sweep it.
I mean, I picked 2-1 for the T20, so I'll stay consistent that India wins, but I would have said 2-1. You never know what could happen in
Yeah.
one ODI. Yeah, Varun, that's a wrap. I mean, there's been a lot happening in the rest of the world in cricket. The West Indies versus England series. England wrapped up the third test today by 10 wickets, today at the time we're recording this. So that's a 3-0 series win. I think that brings us to a wrap. Varun, enjoy your trip to Sri Lanka. I know it's going to be good. Hopefully, even if you don't get to see the game, being in the city, you'll be there Tuesday as well, right? So,
I'm Tuesday now. I'll be there Wednesday morning, so I'll
okay, so you won't
probably
be there for the third
depends
T20.
on the Wi-Fi and the flight if I can watch that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and then you will be there for the ODI. This has been fun. Good to wrap. Kind of very different coming off of the energy of the IPL and the World Cup, etc. There's been 2 T20s and a Women's Asia Cup. Not that much we needed to cover. But thanks to everybody for listening. We have fun doing this. We love to come out and put these out there. We are at One Tip One Hand on all the social medias. Like I said, we are one tip one hand at gmail.com. If you'd like to send us any feedback or review or any ticket hookups for Varun for Friday first ODI in Sri Lanka.
I was hoping
And
you'd do a last plug.
of course. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave us comments. We'd love to read them. This is the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We will be back in next week to talk about the ODIs. Thank you very much for listening.